All right, sweet. Hey, gang. My name is Stephen Wiley, and I'm going to present on Sauce on Demand plus Perl equals cross-platform, cross-browser, web, and mobile testing. Now, let's see. Let me get back to my window here so I can share the screen. Screen share. Let's see. Let's do the entire screen. Okie doke, good. So y'all can see that? I guess now's the time to probably cut the front lights, yeah?
Yeah, I wanted to
Ah. For sure. Well, let me just let you take a look at... Okay, good. You can see the levels and everything. It's all good? All right, great. So, yes, I've been doing test automation now for almost 6 years. Did 5.5 years at HP and just started at Capital One. And been playing with Selenium from time to time ever since the very, very beginning. Started with Selenium kind of stuff all the way back in 2009 to do test automation on the HP Superdome 2 manageability firmware. And now I'm doing Sauce Labs, which helps you do cross-platform and cross-browser testing with Selenium very adroitly and easily and without having to spend a lot of dang money and resources. So, without any further ado, let's continue. And, of course, this is me, Stephen Wiley. And unfortunately, I didn't quite get this part going up and ready yet, but you can actually head over to GitHub/mrcity. And with github.com/mrcity, you can go into the Sauce Labs toot, just like this folder in there, and you can see some of these slides and some of the other resources in there. And I'll have to post code later. I've been having a lot of problems with SSL and stuff like that trying to get that on. But in any event, so just feel free to jump in if you have any questions. And when you're navigating the slideshow later, you can use the left and right arrows to navigate, and of course the links have a blue background like this. So, maybe you came here because you want to test your killer web app. You got the next big idea, you got the next Facebook, the next Twitter, the next Instagram, the next Foursquare, who knows what it could be. But maybe you also, in the process of validating it and making sure that the customers will actually love your product and not just send you down to the river, maybe you don't want to shell out mounds of cash and mounds of resources and spending months and months of time and man hours building a data center only to have it end up looking like this. Or maybe you're also afraid of what your test team might look like once you tell them they're going to have to do a bunch of cross-platform, cross-browser testing on multiple environments and multiple OSs and all that kind of stuff. So when it's time to test on multiple browsers, it's just going to turn into a bunch of monkeys having a festival. Well, luckily, 21st century is here. We have cloud technologies, thanks to Amazon, EC2, and all that stuff, and they have brought us Sauce Labs. Sure. Sure. Yeah, so let me hit stop sharing, and then I'll go back to the Hangout and do screen share again. I'll share the entire screen. And look at that, that's pretty cool. See how it's going all fractal on me?
Whoa.
All right, so put that away and sure. Oh, we got to make sure everybody can see this cast on all their devices.
Yeah, well, I don't know if anybody this time.
So if there's anybody who's joined remotely, let me know if you can or can't see my screen share.
Now I get
Okay, good. So let's continue. So Sauce Labs is a company that provides a product called Sauce on Demand, which is a solution based on the Amazon EC2. So get all elastic on you, and you can actually set up a whole bunch of VMs in real time to do your testing with. Therefore, you're liberated from buying tons of hardware. You don't have to sit there and procure a whole bunch of server blades, interconnect modules, cables, chassis, a data center cooling. You don't even need to worry about any kind of co-location at all. So no hardware for you whatsoever. And it also frees your test experts to focus on developing automation. Because instead of having to worry about any kind of environment maintenance, handling ESXi or vMotion or anything like that, all you got to do is just worry about writing the automation, and Sauce Labs takes care of executing that automation for you. Another hidden benefit of using Sauce Labs is that because VMs are created on demand in real time when you want them and deleted once you're through using them, there's no state data, there's no cookies, or any goop left over from previous tests. As every environment will give you the same experience each time. So there's no more going through and somebody in the test team has got their environment set up in some weird way, and so they're seeing some issue that nobody else can replicate. That'll never happen here. So with Sauce Labs, you can run tests automatically or even manually in many different browser and OS combinations. Now here's an example of a wide variety of tests. Here's a screenshot of the Sauce Labs dashboard. You can see a number of different things in the error state, a number of things in the pass state, and I was hoping to have it show you a little bit lower down where it actually has some different things going on besides just Linux. It could show you Chrome or Firefox or all kinds of whatever browsers he's using in the icons down here. So, luckily for you, there's plenty of documentation available on the Sauce Labs website, and there's pretty thorough support forums with people who help out that will help you get started using Sauce Connect with many different languages, including Perl. The one that I'm actually most familiar with and using at work right now is JavaScript, but because this is the Perl Mongers meetup, I had to convert this stuff into Perl to make a proper presentation for you guys. So to really get the most out of Sauce, though, you need to be aware of the Selenium WebDriver. The Selenium WebDriver is what ultimately goes and runs the test automation through the browser on the website that you're looking to poke around with. And the Selenium WebDriver presents you with a standard API to run identical commands across many different browsers. So whether you're using Firefox, Chrome, Safari, Opera, or IE, or whatever, you run the same command, get to the same end result. You click, you get the text, you navigate to a different page, all that kind of good stuff. Now, I do have to mention that Selenium WebDriver has to be implemented for each browser, so it's not quite available for all the browsers. The one that does a little bit better at that is much older. It's called Selenium RC. It's been supported in Perl for many, many years. It's the one that I started out with back in 2009. And it generally works with most anything. However, the Selenium WebDriver API is better because it tends to have less confusing code than the Selenium RC API. So thus, in our examples, we're going to delve into WebDriver tonight. Some of the things that get confusing about Selenium RC is keeping track of, is it click element, click link? There can be many functions that are named the same thing. The other thing about Selenium RC is that it actually injects JavaScript into the web browser code in runtime as it's running. So it's compatible with more browsers that way because it's just doing the JavaScript injection, but at the other time, it's actually not quite able to persist through any kind of state changes like a page refresh or a page reload or going on to the next link or so forth. So Selenium WebDriver is a little bit more robust as well. So the first thing you do to start using Selenium in general from Perl is downloading this module, Selenium Remote Driver, from CPAN. This takes a long time. So, in case you're following along, while you wait, why not sign up with Sauce Labs right now? The best part about signing up for Sauce Labs is it's completely free for open source projects. And if you don't have an open source project, there's different tiers of accounts for which you can pay monthly. You might as well also glance at the WebDriver CPAN module's documentation. Actually, I've got that pulled up right here. So in general, the CPAN module provides you such things like new, which will help you create the driver instance. There's get alert text, accept alert, move to get capabilities, quit, which is important for ending your session, get title, for getting the title of the page, get text, which I may have mentioned that's very important when I get text, indeed. You want to make sure the elements contain exactly what you want. Most of all, find element and find elements, also very important. And of course, click, double click, button down, button up, and you can send text as well. So all kinds of functions here to play with. Now you can see these are functions for interacting with the browser. Now how about interacting with any particular element inside that browser? Well, for that, we can go on to Selenium Remote Web Element. And in this case, it provides you all kinds of things, like your send keys to the element, and click the element, find out if it's selected, or set it, see if it's enabled, get the element location for if you want to do UI testing to validate your layout, actually. Get the tag name clear, all kinds of good stuff. You can even do drag and drop if you want to. So, okay, now let's dig into some code. So the first code that I'll show you is going to be the remote wd.pl. So this is my remote test, actually, that is going to automate a trip to the Amazon. And make sure not to give them your wallet while you're there. Otherwise, it might spend your money each time you run the test. So to do wd-remote.pl, this is simply for the people who might look at this later, but because you have me in the room, I'm just going to do that for you right now. What do you say? Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so pretty light on the imports. We have Selenium Remote Driver is really the only thing you need. There's Data Dumper, which might... Sure. Let's see if I can Control plus this or Alt plus this or Control A and preferences. How big do you want it? Is 12 good? You want it higher? 16? 16 look good for everybody? Okay. Now I'll bring this way out so you can look at the whole thing. All right, so Data Dumper is good for debugging your stuff and just looking at any kind of data structures that you've been using, such as your list of elements that you pulled from the recent search. And then I had intended to use the HTTP request module to go through some interesting features of the Sauce Labs API, but unfortunately, this SSL issue on this stupid VM of mine's been giving me a lot of headaches. So I don't think I'll be able to demo that, unfortunately. So anyway, first thing we can do is actually get some test data to log in. So in settings.txt, I fetch my login and my API key, simply my username and my API key, then just chomp it, standard stuff. And then I concatenate that into a big string to log into the Sauce Labs Selenium instance that exists on their VM that they spin up for me in real time. So login : API key at on demand www.saucelabs.com. Then we set up the new Selenium remote driver, give it the remote server adder of host, which we just defined up here. Of course, it's on port 80. And this is where it gets kind of cool, because this is where I get to specify the platform and browser that you want to use. In here, we can say we want to use Firefox, use version 37 of Firefox, and we use Windows platform. And the extra capabilities part, we can give it the name of the test, which shows up as desk. And the desk variable is defined up here, and it's going to be called Perl WebDriver Bindings and Selenium. Now, if we step back a little bit to where I had the screenshot of the Sauce Labs dashboard, I will show you that instead of saying unnamed job, it will then go on to say Perl WebDriver Bindings and Selenium. So a whole lot more interesting, fortunately. Get us back to where we were, and now to continue going through this, you initialize your Selenium instance by having the driver go off and fetch Amazon.com, and that's what we're doing here. And in case the driver becomes undefined afterward, we'll fail to load localhost and Sauce on demand with a special function that I wrote called checkExit. All checkExit does is it takes the first argument, and if the first argument is false or undefined or anything else it evaluates to false, then it will print off this message and it will end the test gracefully. So you're not sitting there waiting for it to say, oh, you know, I didn't find a command in 90 seconds. It's just waste all your time when you do it like that. So then what I was hoping to do down here is to make a quick API call to Sauce Labs to find this job's ID. This way we can send along the status and the metadata. So to do that, you can make an HTTP request to http://saucelabs.com/rest/v1, give it your login name, and then the API endpoint is jobs. And then you specify limit 1, so it only gives you the most recent job that you've run thus far. That's the current job you're running right now, assuming this would actually work. You give it the basic login and API key credentials to get in. And from there, what I was hoping to be able to do is it would give me the job ID so that I could actually send stuff like pass or fail to the job later on once I was actually done running the test. And I can show you kind of how to do that later on using a post request, I believe, is the proper technique for that. We can go into the API documentation a little bit later. So once we do that, let's get to the search box and start making this stuff interesting. So we want to enter a product to search for on Amazon. So what we need to do is figure out where that search box exists. So first, we'll find the search query input element by its ID. Now let's take a look at the Amazon website real fast, and I think this is it up here. So let's inspect this element. Of course, the Chrome Developer Tools comes right up, and you can see that search field has an ID called 2-tab search text box. When you're trying to look for web elements on the browser, you want to try to find the most distinctive item that can distinguish that element, so it's the easiest to try to find. And if you're a web developer making HTML pages, please give everything a distinct ID so that the testers can find everything the easiest and fastest. We don't like dealing with long X paths to try to drill down an XML schema to find the element we want. Just give us the ID and save us a lot of trouble, please. So, in order to get this element so that we can script it, we need to run the driver find element command. We provided the name of the field consisting of the text we wanted to search for and exactly where it should search for that text. So any element, the ID of 2-tab search box will be returned into our scalar here, my input element. Then we can send it the keys representing our search query. The search query is just a string, and since I talked about men's clothing in my bio, we're going to look for a Super 150 suit. Simply talking about the grain of the wool they're using in that suit. So, yeah, that's fine and dandy, but of course Amazon doesn't really do anything when you type stuff in. You actually have to engage that box. So now, to do a little bit differently, let's search by class. And the class for nav input actually describes the search button over here. So if you right click on that, hit inspect element. Luckily, it's the first thing on the page that has a class of nav input, so that's the thing that you get back. Search button, and now once we have that, then we click on the search button. Then luckily, this is just raw Selenium commands here. We're not really using a framework. So a framework might provide you better means of error handling and exception handling. Say if an element takes a really long time to show up, then a framework does a pretty good job of waiting for that. Sometimes Selenium can be a bit tricky to configure, especially if you want a really short timeout window, so that you only have maybe 1 or 2 seconds for something to happen before it just says, okay, fine, I give up. So luckily, I've got a pretty long timeout window set in my Selenium instance anyway, so we can just use this command as is to wait for the search results page to load. And in this case, we're going to key off a particular element to appear on the search results page before we go on with the rest of the test. And that particular item is called the S result count in its ID. And to show you that one, I'll go back from here, and that's this item right here. Shows you how many results it's displaying, shows you how many total results there are, and a representation of what you just searched for. So let's glom onto that for a little bit. Now that this is kind of interesting that it's saying something dynamic, let's fetch the text from it. So for that, you reference the element here, search result count element, and you give it the get text function that provides you the text in this variable search result count. Then we simply print off what it says to the console, and we can run a basic check on the element's text and make sure that everything's as we expect. So when running from a regular browser, you always get 16 results off the Amazon search page. And we don't really care how many results there are because that could actually change daily. So we don't really want to test for that specifically. Let's just leave it kind of to the wind. So we also, however, want to make sure that exactly what we typed in is represented in that field. And if any of those things end up not making this regular expression happy, then we will mention that we failed to find the expected text in the search result count box. And of course, since it's check exit, then we exit that right away, and we don't continue with the test. However, in this case, we actually do work. Everything goes along good. So let's obtain the first result. Now in this case, let's do a little bit different search than usual and search for it by tag name. So tag name, of course, really simple stuff. You can search on A, span, div, H1, H2, all that kind of good stuff, I mean, iframe, whatever. So in this case, all of the items on the search results page that are the links that appear clickable are in fact the H2 element variety. So let's give it an array. So we'll have the my search results array is the result of driver find elements, just like I specified here. So once we have the elements on the page that are of type H2, now we need to actually do some filtering on that list to make sure that we're only getting the results back and not any of the gobbledygook down at the bottom of the page. So in particular, we need to remove the first one, because the first one is in fact the search result count that's up here. And then once we have that said and done, let's remove everything after the 16th result, because that's not a store item that you can click on and buy. So now that we've done that, we've got an array that consists of nothing but search results. And if you want to, here's where you can use data dumper to actually go off and print all the list of search results that you found. You can do that like this: print dumper search results. I don't really feel like having that in there, so I'll take that out, and let's just have it click on the first result on the search page. And once again, we'll wait for the item to load. So let me simulate that in here. Let's click on the first result, and we're going to key on the item that indicates the original price of whatever it is you just clicked on as our key to say, okay, the page has loaded. So in that case, that's this item right here. The list price is $259 on the Super 150S suit. And so let's find that element a little bit differently. This time we're going to find it by its CSS style. And to do that, we can take note of this element. Let's right-click on that real fast. So you notice that it's a TD, table data inside of a table row. So in here, you can say table row, and then inside that table row is table data. And then each of these dots indicates a class that table data element belongs to. Belongs to ASPAN 12, color secondary, size base, text, and especially strike. And in particular, we want that strike to be there because, well, this is the thing, this is the list price. We want to imply to people that you're not paying that. So if it doesn't actually match that style, then we're going to have a big problem. So the original price element, get text, if it doesn't find the strike through parameter there, then it will fail to get any text out of this, and it will run the regular expression and say failed to find the list price on the page for item 1. So what we're looking for here is, of course, $sign to start out with, then any combination of digit and comma, and then the dot, and then 2 digits for the cents. Pretty simple regular expression as they come along. So assuming that all works fine, let's get the actual Amazon price. And that comes from the element ID price block our price, which appears right underneath that, of course, in the big letters. There's price block our price here. And now let's filter these out a little bit. So I'm going to clean out any of the $signs and commas from them. So now they're just straight up floats. They're going to be, the dollars, point, and then the cents. And then we're going to run a comparison here to find out if the original price is actually less than the Amazon price. Because Amazon is supposed to be giving you a good deal on stuff, so they need to not be charging you more than the original price, or else why are you shopping there? So if it is in fact, the Amazon price is in fact more than the original, you say, whoops, and you can throw an error like that. So now to do something highly interesting, let's actually go over all these images here, mouse over them, and make sure that big image actually changes as we expect it to. So for that, I noted that actually we're going to look at some XPath right now. So this is an example of searching for an element by its XPath, because this one didn't have any kind of distinctive ID or class that I could glom off of really easily. So we're going to find all the elements that match, and I'll go through this a little bit slowly for you guys. Let me know if you have any questions. The 2 slashes means anywhere in the document. It doesn't have to start from the root. So you don't have to go through all the HTML, body, div, blah, blah, blah. It can start from the LI. You list item. Now you want to pick the list items who have the class type consisting of A spacing small and item. So of course the CSS styles are going to look like this. And then so if I were just to run it like this, it would give me all the elements that look like that. So, however, then from there, we're going to search for all of these list items that have a span tag somewhere underneath them, anywhere. It doesn't have to be the next item under the LI. And then from there, we're also going to go on. So any element that is an LI has a span child. Now we're going to search for one with an image underneath of that too. So let's just right-click on this. And I'll show you. We got the LI, the span, and the input. Now here is the big image, and if you have to ignore the image tag wrapper ID because that gives you the floaty thing. You go up and you see the LI, span, div. So the big pictures, a little bit easier to find. You can find the big pictures by using li.image.item, and that's their CSS style. Because what's going on here is these large pictures that show up, they're all actually loaded on the page, but the ones that you don't have showing at the very moment are currently size 0. So they're just small, they're hidden, and the one that is showing is the proper size that Amazon told it to be. Some of these pictures are actually larger or smaller than the box you see, but they're all scaled to that same size. So let's take a look at this one more time. So yeah, inside the span here is where you find the IMG. So to go through the X path, with this along the side, so you can see there's your LI with the class of A spacing small item. And that's, of course, way down on the page. There's a bunch of other stuff in front of that. And then between that and the span that you're looking for, there's a bunch of other spans. But you want to find the span that has a child of IMG directly underneath it. And that's this one right here. And you ultimately glom on to that IMG tag to acquire your list of all these thumbnail elements. So to take a look at this again, let's inspect this, and I'll just try to shrink as many of these as I can. And you'll see some main image container, all the things in the unordered lists. So the things that actually grow and shrink are these things that are called image, item number 0, image item number 5, 4, 1, 2, and 3. So these are the things that should pop up and go away as you mouse over these items on the side. So in order for this to be automated, we are going to loop over all the thumbnail elements and call it the active thumb index. And so this is simply looping over from 0 to the highest index number in this thumbnail elements array. This is also up here going to print out the number of items in the thumbnail elements array, but of course this is one higher than the highest index in a 0-based array. So for the case of our loop, to keep it nice and simple, we just use this. So let's move the mouse to click on each of the thumbnails. So we obtain the element that is that index in the array, and then we use the driver to move mouse to location. You can move it to a specific element, call out the element, and then you can specify an X offset and a Y offset so you can navigate to the middle of it or maybe the very top corner of it. For our case, the top corner is just fine. That'll get us everything we need. Now, once we move the mouse to location, let's actually do our validation here. Find out that the larger image that we expect to show up has actually shown up. So now we're going to iterate through all of the big pictures that we found. All of the item number 1, item number 2, and so forth. So for each big picture, we're going to glom on to its specific object, and then we're going to get its class attribute. So of course the class attribute is all this stuff you see in the class area here. And the one that you actually hovered over should have a class entitled selected. So here we're going to use a bit of an XOR trick to keep the logic simplified, or at least simplified in my book, a little less writing. So the wrong picture is shown if the active thumb index is equal to the big picture index. XOR, the class, does not have selected inside of it. So basically, if the active thumbnail index is equal to the big picture index, that is, you're hovered over thumbnail number 2, and then you're also looking at big picture index number 2 to make sure that it's actually big. However, you find out that the class is not selected, then that's the case that'll bring up wrong picture shown, make it true. The other thing is, if the active thumb index is not equal to the big picture index, but you do see that the class is selected, then it'll also make wrong picture shown equals true. So think about this as two statements. This is statement number 1, and this is statement number 2. For the XOR to evaluate as true, either one of these must be false. Both cannot be false, both cannot be true. So in the event that we end up evaluating this statement as true, then we'll say, whoops, the mouse is over the picture number thumb index, but instead the picture big index is actually being shown. And for you to be able to see the demonstration in this really easily, let's sleep for a second so you can actually watch the mouse move over all the different elements and give it time to load the image into the big window. So other things you can do include manipulating scroll bars, manipulating select boxes. You can select the size for the item. You can go on and hit customer reviews. Why don't you scroll down the page? You can watch for a top bar that appears after you do that. You can even run JavaScript using Selenium WebDriver to manipulate elements that appear on the screen, especially the scroll top and the scroll offset if you wanted to scroll on particular divs to get them down to a certain place. And then adding the item to your cart and verifying the item is present in your cart. And this is the only thing in the cart, because guess what? This is one of these on-demand VMs. Shouldn't have anything in it because it didn't log in as your own username yet, so that should be it. And then, of course, now that this has been all said and done, you can conclude the test by saying driver quit and just print out a nice little done message before you get through. Now, the check exit function down here, like I was describing, pretty darn simple. Just evaluates that status for either true or false, or undefined, or anything else that might evaluate to false as well. Prints off the message, and in case that status evaluates to false, and then exiting, and then quits the driver for the sake of cleaning up your test and not having it run forever and ever afterwards. So you ready to run this? Aye. Okay. So running this is pretty darn simple. Let me Alt-TL this, and let me see if I can increase the font size of this as well.
I think you're less than price level.
Let's see. This one, yeah?
Yes.
So the original price is the list price here. And so the Amazon price.
Yes. No, you're right.
Yeah, definitely check this.
That's not a check exit.
No, this one I did not make a check exit. I figured it was not a severe case, so we could let the test continue on and find out additional errors. So there's actually another function that I wanted to write called check result, had I gotten the HTTP status stuff to actually work. And what check result would have done was kept track of a running status, either pass or fail, and would submit that to Sauce Labs at the end of the test to tell you what the output would be. And that way, check result would actually keep an array consisting of all the error messages you saw along the way. So that way, instead of having one bug report for every time you run these test automations, which can take, several minutes to go through a complex test case, you can catch a whole bunch of stuff at once. It makes that a lot easier on your poor developers who are going to be, waiting on those results to come back. So let's go back to the terminal here, and let's bring up the size a bit. So now we're in Sauce Labs tut, and all I have to do is write /remote wd.pl. And for the sake of making this kind of play along at home, let's fire this up. This is my personal test dashboard. You can see things that I've been running in the past, and all the kind of good stuff. And now I'm going to run this, and once that happens, it should pop up here pretty quickly with running. So let's go in and take a look at that. The screencast is a live video of everything that's going on right now in that VM. So it writes the Super 150, clicks on the button, and it couldn't retrieve the command settings properly. I think it's because, what did I do? I wanted to do something and maybe didn't implement that. So let me check the line 84. So it actually failed to find the expected text 1 through 16 of 702 for the Super 150 suit. So let's take a look at the screencast and figure out what happened there. Luckily, once you have this result, you can watch the video. You can see the blank VM before it starts up anything. It starts the browser, navigates to the page, and starts doing all that stuff that we watched it do before. So the field said 1 through 16 of 702 for Super 150 suit, and somehow it said it failed to find the expected text in the search result count. So, and it's got the quotes there for the search query. Well, unfortunately, it seems to be running a little bit differently from here than it was back at the house. Yes, of course. It's always a live demo curse. Well, let's see if we can take this text nevertheless and just copy that in and put it in here. And in this case, I'll just use EQ. Say it like that. We'll see how that works. All right, now this thing will probably go so quickly that it'll be good luck for me to get back in there by the time anything happens. So you can just go straight to hit full screen and start watching your results. So there it is. There's the 1 through 16 again. And again, it seems to not like me at all for some reason right there, because it's clearly getting the text back from this and it's printing it off. But for some reason, it seems to believe that it's not equal to the text field that I'm providing it. So let's see. And to make sure I've got not status and check exits. So it's not just failing because it's evaluating true instead of false. That would be crazy. Let me see where I was. 84. Oops. Yeah, it's got the line numbers down here in the bottom. So also, for some reason, it seems to not be able to retrieve the command settings properly, which is interesting. I didn't mess this up somehow, did I? And let's see. So let's undo that as well. Make this go back a long way. All right, now I will save this as, and instead of sauce, we'll use something. This remote wd.pl. Yes. All right. And we're still there, so let's give it a go one more time before I just give up and comment that out. Meanwhile, I'll delete these old jobs. You don't really need to see them anymore. Okay, it's being evil with me tonight, so gotta love it. So it's time to just nuke that line, I think. But you understand that it did show you the text you expect, even if somehow this logic seems to believe that it didn't. Can you go up a little bit higher? That is an interesting point, although did have this working before, and it shouldn't have. Well, I guess, yeah, it may have stopped on that, but we'll see how it goes now that I've commented this out. Let's clear this, and okay, all that's finished. We'll try it again one more time. Hopefully we'll get on a little bit faster, or go through a little bit more stuff. So Anyway, there's an example of a test failure. So we got that kind of out of the way, and I don't have to show you the other thing I was thinking of. So there we go. It finally clicked on the first result, and there it is. Now it's navigating through all the different other pictures along the side. Unfortunately, it seems to be taking them a long time to actually load up. So we may be able to see that once we watch the video as it's been encoded, as opposed to watching the live video, which may have been a bit choppy. So let's see what actually happened. You can see that it displayed that the number of thumbnails of the item had 6, so it got the right count there, as we expected. And let's skip to the very end of this and see how it rolled over all these things. So there we go. See a little bit better resolution on that. There's the first picture. Now it's going to hover over the second one. Actually, it's loading pretty jiffy on this one. Yeah, I spoke too soon. Yeah, so anyway, I guess Amazon employs some kind of load on demand feature with their pictures, which is useful. It saves your bandwidth as a user, helps the page load quicker. And there's the end of the test, so it closes the browser and says adios, good night, have a good day, everybody. And back here in the test run, well, doggone it, it'll still say finished. It won't show you past this time because I, again, didn't quite have a chance to get that API call to set the actual test result working. However, we can take a look at that here in the REST API. So in here, we can take a look at update job. So an update job, this is actually a put request, and you give it the job name that you want to change in the URL, and then the fields, your request fields, which are simply JSON encoded. You can give it all kinds of things, a name. If you want to change the job name, you can give it tags, Boolean settings for public or private displays, and finally the one that I want to toggle, which is called pass. Either pass equals true or pass is false, in order to be able to tell you at a glance from the dashboard what exactly is going on here. So anyway, let's see. Cool, right?
Yeah.
Super cool. So that's all fine and dandy to automate a site that's already been deployed and already in the public, out in the wild, to be seen by millions of people, including hackers. But what about my super secret next killer website project that I don't want anybody to know about right now except the VC guys who I like to just blow smoke up to them to make sure they buy my product eventually. This only exists on my local host. So how can I get into that? So to get into the localhost project that you might have, then let's look at our file called wdlocal.pl. Now this one's pretty basic. I'm not going to go through a whole big laborious explanation of everything to do with Selenium, WebDriver and elements and all that stuff. It's only going to run maybe just a couple of things. So if you're following along with this at home and trying to do this yourself, make sure you have some sort of page that gets served up when you type in localhost into the browser, or else this might be kind of difficult. I mean, maybe you could actually glom onto the 404 couldn't find this page type of thing. But if you're using Firefox, which serves up usually XUL or some kind of other markup language like that that you can't really get the source code of, then it's going to flummox you quite a bit. So make sure you got Apache set up that can give you a local host or serve you some kind of decent page off of there. So let me show you what mine looks like. Pretty simplistic here. It works just a bit. Default web page for the server. So I can punch that into browser, and you'll just see the same thing. Localhost, yeah, works just a bit. Oh, that's weird. So somehow on the screen my, aha. Well, technical difficulties, guys. Let's see how the Hangout's going. So Hangout still says I'm sharing my screen. There's that whole thing again. Let me stop the screen sharing. Well, it still shows me as here. Let's. Oh, it says DFW Perl Mongers left group chat. So that would probably be important.
Strolling along it starts to rain.
Please wait for your conference to begin.
An umbrella with soaked to the skin. The shiver run up my spine. I feel the warmth of her hand in mine.
Uh-oh. Well, let me see if I can still get in a dream host. Yeah, just refresh my dream host, fine. Wait a minute, that wasn't live. So did you see my thumb go up?
After a while we
You know, I had a feeling I needed to rehearse some jokes or some stand-up material, but I didn't. Okay.
Softly she breathes.
Well, then I'm going to stop playing copyrighted music.
Perhaps go to sleep and then the car's not waking up.
I'll play something non-copyrighted.
You try a 2-inch straw.
Have you tried whacking it with a sandal yet? Never forget the time I had this old monitor from the 80s. Just all of a sudden up and died, started doing the whole squiggly line bit. And somebody just walks over to it, doesn't know much about computers. She takes it and starts beating it with her sandal, and it comes back to life. Never failed again.
I had a laptop like that in college. I had to administer percussive.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty serious drop. Mm.
Not too long ago then. No, man, I'm up. I'm fine. My gateway is.
Sudo at CNIT networking restart.
Because they'll go to sleep until you start reinitialize. Yeah.
Yeah, only me though.
Can you see you?
Maybe I can try to invite people.
You don't have to.
Well, let's see how to do this. Right. Yeah, it's still showing, although it's weird because on my side box it shows DFW Perl Mongers, John Field, and Tommy Butler in there. But then on my screencast it shows that John Fields and DFW Perl Mongers left.
Well, I left earlier and then I came back in.
Okay. What about the old control room? Not that. Dots.